Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crack Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crack Podcast. Today we have a special edition. We join with obviously my two co-hosts. Let's give a big round of applause, please, for Mr. Damarcus Beasley. Next up, I have my other co-host holding down the back and controlling the fort. Let's give it up for the Glow, a.k.a. Oguchi, Onyewu.
What's going on, brother? What's going on?
Good morning.
This is a special morning edition. I thank you guys for joining us today, and I thank you listeners for tuning in. We're having a special edition of what's relevant, what's going on today in the United States of America. We have some feelings and just some conversations I want to have with my brother. I woke up this morning with a tear in my eye. I'm not a very emotional type of crying person, but I did shed one tear, and I'm not quite sure if it's a tear, rest in peace, Mr. George Floyd, or is it more of a tear of seeing our former teammates, classmates, friends, neighbors, some people that we might have loved or thought they loved us, and they have not chosen, or they have chosen not to stand on the same platform that we're standing on. And I just wanted to speak to my brothers today. We have no specific structure. I think a conversation, a little bit of therapy amongst ourselves would be needed. What do you think, Bees?
Yeah. I think now more than ever, we need everyone to stand with us. People of all shapes, religions, color, everybody, because this has been going on for far too long. And, you can see people are tired. People are angry. People are mad, and which they have every right to be. And, I think, like you said, a lot of people haven't, I think this is the right time to see and to put yourself to see which side you're on. It's either you're with us or you're not with us. And, for me, for this to get anywhere close to, getting rid of racism and injustice, we all need to stick together and we all need to step up. We all need to use our voices, whether it's a big platform or a small platform, whether it's, peaceful protesting, doing what you can, understanding, what this is for. I think that goes a long way, and it's a start.
It's a start, man. Gooch, we had several conversations for years about racism in America and racism in U.S. soccer. How are you feeling this morning?
Man, the same I've felt for the last 38 years, man. It's this isn't new to us. The three of us, this isn't new. This is not something like we woke up and we're like, okay, we're woke. This is what's going on. I've witnessed this throughout my whole life, right? My parents before me, I could tell you stories about them coming to America from Nigeria and how they were treated in DC in the 70s, and this is, I
can imagine.
I don't know, man. Like the other day, it was funny. Randomly, I'm doing school work, and there's all these memes and everything. There's all these videos being posted now, and all of a sudden, there's 1.2 million activists, and there was this video, Michael Jackson's video, and I love Michael Jackson. That's my man, and it was the song "They Don't Care About Us," right? And yeah, I just started. I started crying. I was in my house alone. Nothing. I just started crying because I realized, and it hit me. This song came out in 1997. 1995, excuse me. And the same images of that video, the same discussion that he's singing about is not even, it's the same. Nothing has changed in the last 25 years, right? Except structurally and evolution-wise, technology, but like systemically, nothing has changed. And I was just like, it kind of broke me because it's like, when, how, why am I looked or treated or interpreted differently because I don't have blonde hair, blue eyes. My pigmentation is darker, right? Or my last name is different. My name is not American or whatever, and I don't know, man. It's just, there's so many emotions right now. And I would say the overall one is anger. I would say that's the one that kind of trumps every other one that I'm feeling right now. So I don't know. I'm glad we're doing this, right? And then we can discuss this and we can talk about it because I think it's good that it's how people are finally universally opening their eyes, right? And all of a sudden everyone's seeing what's been going on for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
So
today we have a guest coming on a little bit later, actually in quite some time, but it's I call him Coach Stuck. His name is John Stueckenschneid, and we're bringing him on because he's not just a coach and somebody part of our soccer community, but he's an NYPD officer for over 20 years. And we're bringing him on because we just want to have a conversation to get a little bit more insight and hear his opinion on certain things. And so he'll be joining us later. But right now, I'd like to discuss with you guys just about maybe experiences that you had with racism in our world, which is soccer. And it could, if it's in the U.S. Soccer Association, if it's while you were in high school, if it's while you were overseas, I'd love to you guys to share some of maybe your experiences that you might have had on and off the field while your playing career throughout the world. Bees, let's start with you if you don't mind.
My soccer career, I only felt racism when I was in Europe. I was with Rangers. We had a game in I can't remember which country. I remember the name, the team's name. It was FK Zeta, but I can't remember where. And I don't want to be wrong and say the wrong country. So I just want to leave it at that. But the same thing that happened, that's happening now, throughout the world of football, where you go to some of these countries and they're making monkey chants, doing the those sorts of things, and I felt that. I heard it every time I got the ball. It was disgusting. It was sickening. I stood up and said something, after the game. And the team I was with at the time, Rangers, they stood by me, made a complaint to FIFA and all that stuff. And obviously they said, basically what they always say, we're gonna look into it. If there's any wrongdoings, we'll try to get those individuals or those parties out of football or banned or whatever. And that's basically it. And that was just football.
Yeah.
But one thing that I always, that is, and this all, this happens and a lot of black people can attest to this. I mean, it's as simple as I've been in, we've been in a million hotels, and you're in a hotel and you about to get on the elevator and you see the elevator open, the doors open, and you get on with, maybe, 3 white people, ladies, or more so, females, women.
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is they change the angle of their purse.
Yeah.
Or they and it happened. And that's it right there. That's a sense of racism. They think that just because I'm black, I'm going to do something to them. I'm going to steal them. I'm going to rob them. You know what I'm saying? So, even little things like that, you can tell that racism exists. It's always going to be there, even the little instances that happens, throughout life, it happens, and I hope that, this can, bring a brighter light to what's really been going on, like Boot said, for the last 25, well, not even 25, the last 100 years.
I mean, and you touched on it, like in Europe, right? I'm not going to say I've only experienced it in Europe. I went to college in the South Carolina, right? And it was crazy. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. I'm 18 years old, having people tell me these silly things. Girls that I would talk to say, we can talk, but if I tell my father, he's going to take me off his will. Like, no joke, no smile, no laughing, straight face. Like, my parents wouldn't allow it. I'll be disowned, stuff like that, and to your point, obviously in Europe, like we've seen it, right? We've seen the monkey chants. We've seen the boos or the gorilla chants. We've seen bananas being thrown on the field. I've been punched in the face by a fan. And it's almost like they try to normalize it by saying, don't take it personally. This is just how they are. Or it's been going on for this time, and then it normalizes it and it gives it the authority to be okay and to continue and to continue and to continue. And it's just like, it's defeating, right? It's just like, okay, like, would you like to be in my shoes? Could a white person sustain that, for that kind of abuse for no reason? Not because you're playing bad, you know what I mean? Not even because you're a rival, but just because you're black or you don't look like that, and for me, it's like, there was a quote somebody said the other day, and it was like, if the color of my skin is considered a weapon, I will always be seen as armed and dangerous. And like that hit me, because it's like, it literally summarized everything, right? Like, they say, you're not born racist. And I believe that wholeheartedly. No baby's born racist, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, anything. You're not born racist, but you're born into racism. And that's strong. That's strong as well, right? Because this nation, and let's be blunt, like, it's racist. It's what it was built on. It's what we've lived through.
It's built off of racism, and it's sustained through making racism and racist situations acceptable, right?
Yeah.
And we're kind of raised in a country where it's not to end racism, it's not to combat racism, it's to know how to deal with racism and to be able to still function. And I think that's the part that that we all flare up, is because we tired of being able to be able to maneuver through racism, right? That shouldn't be a situation where that is okay and that is accepted in this country. What I love about our platform is that you guys are really you're not the norm in terms of the careers that you had, the lives that you experienced. And myself, I represent the guys who didn't have the great path and the great success that you guys had, and maybe had to play 4 years of college soccer, maybe had to go through a little bit more hardship that others who are elite athletes like yourself didn't have to experience. One thing I feel that I was always fortunate in life is soccer saved my life, because I had to deal with racism from a young age. Growing up in an all-black neighborhood, I played soccer amongst the suburbs where I was usually the only black on the field. And I say that that was something I think I benefited from, because I didn't deal with racism like a lot of my friends I went to school with the first time in college, being in a multiracial institution, or at work, or because in the black neighborhood, only time they really get a chance to deal with a white confrontation is through a police officer. So that's where the hate is built from, because that's their first situation of racism. My first situation with racism at 10 years old is documented in Long Island Junior Soccer League that a player called myself a nigger and his father made other statements. And I chased the kids. My father chased their father. It was a big situation. If you know Mookie from Long Island, you grew up with me, you know about that situation. And continuously, over and over again, I had to deal with that as we traveled and played tournaments in down south. But even in New York City, it's even worse than down south. Because what I realized about down south is that at least they know, they have an understanding because they had so many race relationships and situations, and they kind of really segregated. While in New York City, you could be right with somebody who really feels that you're a threat, you shouldn't be here, and they don't want you in this country. But
right. It's almost like down south, like they understand that's their identity, albeit it's poor, it's not right.
And they have an understanding. Like, listen, okay, you stay over there, I stay over here, and I understand how to deal with you, you understand how to deal with me. While New York City was like, it's a melting pot, and you have all these different issues with people really, living head on. And what I always knew is that I had people that love me who aren't my color skin, don't have my heritage, that love me, but they love me because I'm Mookie on the soccer field. They love me because I was a Mookie, the soccer player, who they got a chance to really know, got a chance to really meet my parents and meet my family and see how great people we are. But if I was walking down the street and they did not know me, that would not be treated with the same type of respect or same type of love and care. And how do you grow up in a world where you know your teammates, you know they're racist, you know they call blacks niggers when they're not around you, you know they do things unconsciously in their household, but they say, "Oh, I'm not racist because I know Mookie and he's my friend and he came over my house yesterday and we shared laughs and jokes." And I think we're in a time period where, for me, Goose, like you said, is nothing, or Bees is nothing different, right? I tell people, I said, listen, Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, we go on and on. The same thing happens. Michael Brown in St. Louis, same thing happens. We ride, we kick and scream, and then eventually it fades away. And then it comes back stronger and stronger. And just like an argument in a relationship, it's like an argument with your spouse or your loved one. If you don't deal with the conflict ahead, it's going to get bigger and bigger. Every argument is going to be worse and worse and worse and worse. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what Goose said. It's just they feel it's normal. It's it's exactly what we're talking about today. When things happen to to black people and they're killed in broad daylight on camera, and the cops don't get sentenced, don't get put in prison and held accountable for their actions, and they just get a slap on the wrist. They get a trial and nothing happens. That's been the normal in this country. And the cops know that if they do something, if they kill an innocent black man, no gun, no nothing, they know they get protected. They know it.
That's it's funny. You guys, I guess in the last few years, the term has been thrown around, white privilege, right? White privilege. Everyone hears it, white privilege. And it's funny because the only people that don't understand that are the white people, right? They don't understand. They're like, I grew up in the hood. I'm not privileged. I'm like, you don't understand. So
I have black friends.
Yeah, I have black friends.
Or I worked hard to get into that college.
Yeah, bro. I can't tell you how many in the last 72 hours, how many random text messages I've received from my friends, white friends. How you doing? This and that. This is terrible. And I love it. And I'm grateful. And I'm happy that they're conscious of it. But this is an example of white privilege. Like, this has been going on. This has been going on forever. And white America has avoided dealing with it. And that's part of their privilege, that they've been able to avoid this for all this time. You know what I mean? And that's part of what we have to sustain, that we don't have that luxury. We can't avoid this. I wake up, I'm there. You condition yourself as a black person in the community, and even more so as a black man, when you approach certain people so you don't come off aggressive, right? I've had people come up to me and be like, yeah, but you're not really black because I'm light skinned, right? Like,
you're different. You're educated and you're light skinned, so you're different.
What the fuck is that? You're not really black. No. You're light skinned, man. You're not really black. I'm like, and you guys know me, right? Like, I'm 400% Nigerian. Like, there's no one that's not going to tell me I'm black. And that infuriates me that they, in their minds, my skin dictates to them what's black or not. So if me and Bees are standing side by side, they'll be like, yeah, you're not as black as Bees. What?
But that goes back to, society and the mental, what they put in our heads, right? In terms of black is always bad. Black is always negative. But I like, Gucci, what you mentioned earlier about systematic racism. That's my biggest issue, right? It's like, somebody calls me a nigger, I can deal with that. But if the system sets you up to fail or to not be successful, that's the issue. Last night we had a conference call with the Black Soccer Coaches Association Leadership Group. And they brought on the vice president for the U.S. Soccer Coaches Association and 2 other leaders from the advocacy group. Mm-hmm. And they told us that they made a statement yesterday. They put out on Twitter. They put a statement out saying that we're all united and they stand behind and Ray. And I asked them, if we're the Black Soccer Advocacy Group, how come you didn't come to talk to us before releasing a statement? Mm-hmm. They said to me, we wanted to make sure we put some urgency and do something immediately. I said, your urgency should be contacting the Black Soccer Coaches Association. That's where your urgency should have been first. How long did it take to make a Zoom call, to make a phone call? What urgency?
It's the optics.
It's the optics. And I said to them, we're having this call today because we want to put together a proposal to present to the board. So I'm asking you a question, since you represent the board, what is the next step after we put the proposal together of what we feel that the Soccer Coaches Association should be doing to end racism in soccer and Soccer Coaches Association? And they said to me, well, it has to go through this person and that person, and maybe it will get towards the board. I said, so you're telling me that if we put together a proposal that we're not even guaranteed that it will get to the board? And I asked them, how many of us are on that board? None.
Zero.
So we have to go through 5 filters to get to the top of the board to make a decision. And then at that board, we're not even able to sit there to even explain or to have somebody talk for us to present it.
Yeah. Even a discussion. Can't even get a discussion.
This is the lifestyle. This is what we've born into. How many hoops do we have to go through? How many situations do we have to kind of raise our voice to in order to even just be heard one time? You know what I mean? And it's funny. This is going to be controversial because, obviously I'm a product of U.S. Soccer. Love U.S. Soccer. They gave me my platform, assisted me in my career, everything. And I 100% am with them in their United Against Racism campaign that they're doing right now, right? But then it makes me question that 3 years ago, during the whole Colin Kaepernick stuff and kneeling, U.S. Soccer, they banned kneeling during the national anthem. Mm-hmm. They publicly said, we ban kneeling. Our players cannot kneel. I guarantee you right now, nobody's going to have a problem with kneeling because they know they know what the flip side of it is now. Yeah. Kneeling's not acceptable. Kneeling's not acceptable. They see riots. Yeah, can you guys please kneel? Can you? We'd like it if you guys kneel. We prefer that now. Sorry, we didn't see the other side of the coin, And so that. Go ahead, Bees. Go ahead.
No, and I'm saying that's the problem. That is 100% the problem. Is that we're trying to do it, peacefully and trying to do it in a way where, to open your eyes and understand what we're actually talking about.
Right.
Anybody that banned, players, institutions about kneeling, they didn't understand the cause. They didn't want to understand the cause. They didn't want to understand. They didn't want to dig deep and say, okay, why is she doing this? Why is he really doing this? Why
they only look on the surface, only on the surface.
Only on the surface. Oh, it's the flag. It's the flag. It has nothing to do with the flag. It's all about the injustice that's happening in this country.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. And no one didn't want to listen. No one didn't want to hear. No one didn't want to read about it. No one didn't want to, like we're saying now, open your mind, understand what we're actually talking about. Listen. Right. Really listen.
And then you hear their responses, no, that's not the right way to protest. That's not the right way to protest. The definition of protest is a public expression of objection or dissent to an idea. So in their eyes, there will be no right way to oppose what they feel is right? Yeah. By definition. So they're saying that kneeling is a poor way to deal with how you feel. Yet, we're locked up on quarantine for 3 weeks, and people go with automatic weapons to their state houses to protest. I'm at a loss of words.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, and I don't want to go off the topic, but you say that, Gooch. I saw a video of a guy with an automatic weapon in broad daylight on the street, and obviously people got cameras and this and that. Everybody's yelling at him to put the gun down. So long story short, he ends up, and there's cops around too. Cops are there, mm-hmm. And he puts his gun down. He has a mask. He has a mask on, all that stuff. He puts his gun down, and there's I call him a hero. There's a hero comes and grabs him and tries to basically beat him up and try to make sure he doesn't hurt anybody else. And guess what happens?
They take the hero.
They take the hero, and he's still in jail. And the guy with the gun is already off. He had a semi-automatic weapon in broad daylight. Literally. I saw the video. And I was reading everything that I could on that situation. And Goose just brought up, and that just came to my head. And the hero's still in jail.
Why do they hate us?
Well, guys, I think
and the hero is Latin.
Yeah.
Minority.
Yeah, a brown man. Guys, I love to bring on Coach Stuck now, just so we can have a discussion and open up the forum a little bit to have some questions that we have for an NYPD officer over 20 years of experience. I'd love to hear from him and how he feels of what's going on. So let's bring on Coach Stuck, who I feel is a person that I feel is a friend. I feel is a family member, and he's part of our soccer community. And I thank you so much and have the pleasure of bringing on the legend himself, officer / coach / footballer, Mr. John Stueckenschneid. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? Good to see you, Damarcus and the.
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. Listen, I'm just honored to be talking to guys who played in a couple of World Cups and played over in Europe. And
so you ain't happy to talk to me too, Coach?
I'm always happy to talk to you, Phil. You know that.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition that we have for our podcast and this very sensitive and serious time that we're in. And we having a discussion a little bit just about our feelings and wanted to kind of put out there and have a little bit of therapy. We're also thankful for you to join us because you give us a side and you give us an opportunity to speak to somebody directly who is amongst and part of the union of the police department in New York City. I know you served over 20 years in probably every borough of New York City.
Listen, I started, I was sworn in average December day in 1997.
Yeah.
I hit the streets July 4th weekend of officially July 4th of 1998. I worked in the South Bronx for a short bit at Fort Apache for a month and with, learning how to do some things. Then I went to East Harlem, which I've worked in the second smallest precinct in the entire city. We covered from East 96 to East 115.
Hey, that's my neighborhood, Spanish Harlem. Baby.
Yes. Yeah, that's it, El Barrio. And then we had the Fifth Avenue. We had the Central Park Wall all the way to the East River. So it's 0.7 of a square mile. When I left there after I got promoted to sergeant, there was 72,000 people living in 0.7 of a square mile. There was 13 separate NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority developments there. And main thoroughfares, you had the subway line that runs through the 6th line. We had the 96th Street stop, 103, 110, and then 116 is up in the 25th precinct. So it was a good place to learn, good place to work. A lot of good people. I was very fortunate that I had strong supervision in terms of my immediate supervisors, sergeants and lieutenants. So, and then I basically worked there and then made it into the detective squad. 4 months shy of getting promoted to detective, my list number popped for sergeant, and I got assigned to the transit division, transit bureau. I worked Midtown, so I had 86th Street on the west side down to Times Square. We had all of Times Square, Bryant Park. That was where I was. And then after I moved my family out to Long Island, we wound up getting transferred to District 20, which covers all of Queens except for the Rockaways. So I was covering 9 precincts, 9 separate train lines, 59 stations, and it was a big playground for me to run around it and interact. I could be at 179 in Hillside. I could be in Long Island City. I could be stepping right out underneath. After I do a train run, I could be in Queensbridge Houses, place where Nas is from and Metal World Peace is from.
So Coach,
it's interesting.
Coach,
you hang out with them?
Listen, I meet crazy lots of people. During my time as a young cop, I was a big fan of The Wire, and all of a sudden at 7-2 in Broadway one time, I see a couple of cast members on different occasions, interacted with them. So like Mookie will tell you, I interact with anybody. I'm engaging. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Good to see a couple of things.
Coach, real quick, I see you wearing a VCU hat. You was a former assistant coach under the great Lincoln Phillips.
Yes, good man.
Speak a little bit about what other coaching travels that you have participated in.
Well, I had that opportunity with Lincoln, and when he left VCU, I had also left. I got onto the New York City Police Department. I was in the academy, and somebody had posted there, hey, you want to play soccer? I was like, sure, no problem. I got a chance to play when I was still good enough to play before I hurt my back. And then all of a sudden, the guy who was running said, hey, I'm retiring. You want to take over? Because I heard you had some coaching experience. So I coached the NYPD enforcers for 5 years. So that was an interesting experience. We went a couple times to Canada for World Police and Fire games. We went to LA to play in some tournaments, Vegas, Portland. It was good. It was fun. But then, when you have a young family.
Did y'all win?
Yes. Portland was fun. I liked the town. It was we were there for a long weekend, and we finished like 4th, and I had no problems with it. It was good.
Yeah, Coach, man. So sitting here now, and again, we brought you on the forum because, we wanted to really have a discussion amongst ourselves. So that's why we brought you on a little bit later. But at the same time, I want to have a discussion with you, right? I think the communication and is what is needed from both sides, and we have some specific questions about police, and we have specific questions about America as itself, that we wanted to discuss, I think
the great experiment known as the American democracy.
Exactly.
The great illusion of American democracy.
I think we should start off with obviously the specifics of really what happened in Minnesota. I think the biggest leadoff question is that I'm sure my brothers and other people who are listening want to know is the first thing is, was that protocol for all 4 officers to kneel on the suspect's back, George Floyd?
Right. Every department is different.
Yeah.
Whether it's federal, whether it's state troopers, or whether it's NYPD or Minneapolis PD.
True.
There are use of force guidelines. They are drummed into us. I kid you not. When I was in the academy, they told us, you hit somebody who's cuffed, you're going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm. So as soon as you get cuffed, you have to I guess, relent on some of the force that you're given.
Oh yeah, you have to relent to an extent in terms of you still have to control the individual for their safety as well as your safety, because people can get kicked, people can get head-butted. So procedurally, that was drummed into us. Listen, when the cuffs are on, the hands are off, you get a control of the situation. I've had incidents, and we've all had them as police officers, where yes, you are tussling, you are fighting with somebody because you're taking their freedom away. Mm-hmm. People will fight or flight. Yeah. It's just a natural instinct.
Yeah.
Some people don't work out, and it shows, and they have issues. And it's with us, because it's such an dense environment, especially Manhattan. There are so many people out on patrol, whether they're in a car or on a foot post. You put something over the radio, the cavalry is going to be there in
instantly,
minutes. Yeah, and they will help you, and they will get the person up. They will get you off. And you also do a lot of self-releasing, like, yo, get off them. We got it. Get him off, cool him off. Those were the things that you're guided by. And I don't know what their procedures are.
That is part of training in New York City, is the cool off part. If you see one of your officers you feel is being too aggressive, they do encourage you guys to, and there's training to I guess it could be conscious to that and somebody to react, a fellow officer to react.
You have to be cognizant of the fact, because you don't want a lot more people getting hurt. There's a lot of situations that can go sideways very quickly. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to have restraint. You have to be able to be mature enough to handle that and work as a team.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I was watching this horrific video, and they had it on one of the shows, and Bernie Carrick was on, and he was our former police commissioner. And the first thing he said, well, where was the frontline supervisor? Now, I'm a frontline supervisor going on 15 years now. We respond to all arrest situations. I didn't see a supervisor there, somebody with the chevrons as a sergeant to immediately take control of the scene.
Yeah.
Like, get off of him. What are you doing? What's going on? Pull him away. Get him up. There's different ways to go over. Like, what do you have here? Why are we here?
Mm-hmm. What hit me, I mean, aside from the knee on the neck and everything, what really hit me about that whole situation was that everybody was filming. There was a crowd of people watching it, right? And they were instructing and telling the guy the whole time, he can't breathe, move it, do this. There was actually even a firefighter woman that was there telling him. And despite all that, knowing that those people, and they could do nothing to help the situation, because if they interfere, then
they're going to get caught. They're going
to get cuffed, or even worse, they could get shot or killed, or violence could begin.
Sure.
So
yes,
they used their voices, and their voices like had no effect on these cops. They're just, one of them was like, just say no to drugs, kids. And I'm thinking, I'm like, this is
yeah,
and that's what really enraged me about the whole thing, is that as citizens, as a cop, you're supposed to protect and serve, great. But as citizens, if you see a crowd, not even two people, like a crowd of people screaming at you for one specific thing, one detail, and you just ignore it the whole time, I was like, well, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, you don't know what's going through their minds in terms of they're worried about tactics. All of a sudden, there's a large group of people. Are people going to jump in? But they could have at least been more engaging, from what I gather, because we sit in the office and we watch this, because I'm no longer on the street. And a couple of guys were like, yo, how long is he going to be on this guy's neck? I'm like, yo, look at this guy's face. Look at his smug look that he has. And I'm like, this isn't good. And then we watch and we're like, how long does this go on? And like, this is too much. Why aren't the other guys pulling him off? We questioning ourselves. Like, we wouldn't do something like that, even if it gets heated. It's right. You got to extricate the individual, get him out of there, move him along, get a different mode of transportation to get him out. If you can't get him into the SUV, you have a van. We have vans. The van will come in. We'll just load him up into the van, get him out of there, get yourself out of there. And then you can cool off somewhere else, and then you can explain to the supervisor what's going on. Well, why'd you move everybody? I just got here. Oh, this is what's going on.
Has there been an explanation of why there wasn't a supervisor there at that time?
I don't know, but as I'm telling you right now, as a frontline supervisor in New York City Police Department, I'm held exceptionally accountable for every action that these officers do. Like I said, Mookie will tell you, Queens is a very big borough. At one time I had 59 separate subway stations, 9 separate train lines, and 9 separate precincts that I'm covering. And I could be in Long Island City, and then have to race over to Flushing Main Street on the 7 line, or go over to Willard's Point where Citi Field and the US Open are, fighting traffic, cutting through with my driver to respond and listen up on the radio. Well, what's this officer doing? He just got an assignment, came over the radio. He might be dealing with somebody who had just a victim of assault. Let me make my way over there to see how he's handling the assignment. And I would call up another officer. Oh, you're on the train and route there. No problem. I'll meet you there. And we find out what we have. And it's you have to be a supervisor. You have to be on top of it. Not that they're bad or they're not incompetent. You just have to make sure that they're following procedures, and they're also following New York State penal law in terms of, and the administrative code of City of New York. Mm-hmm. So you have to engage them in that.
You mentioned earlier, like, I guess the training and the protocol are different from each, even in New York, like the bureaus or whatever, and especially Minnesota or whatever state. Do you think it would be more beneficial, I guess, for there to be a nationwide standard of cops in terms of de-escalation or manuals to kind of promote and ensure the quality in regard to that?
It's consistent. I'm sure that is where we're going to be headed because of this. And this is not a unique incident only to Minneapolis. It has been nationwide. We've had situations in New York that were very ugly.
Right. Eric Gardner.
Well, Eric Gardner's one. Abner Louima's another.
Yeah.
Amadou Diallo. I mean, I've worked through all of those.
Yeah.
And they are not pretty.
It's interesting you say you worked through all those because, recently.
Not actually physically work.
You're on the job. Yeah. I wanted to ask you because I remember Bratton, right?
Yes.
When he introduced the zero tolerance. Can you explain what the zero tolerance is and what was that?
Okay, that was on his first stint.
Yeah.
Under Giuliani.
Mm-hmm.
The city was out of control. It was on the rotten apple. It was on top of the cover of Time magazine. He came in with the model of zero tolerance, came from broken windows, which is a theory that if you allow different things in your community, like a broken window doesn't get fixed, that means you don't care about your neighborhood. So other smaller things will escalate into bigger things. You'll have people smoking weed on the stoops. You'll have garbage not being picked up or garbage being thrown around. You'll have public intoxication and a lot. You'll have people being violently assaulted, and they wanted to get rid of that. So they started with everything small. And that was another thing that when I was going through the academy, we were learning the broken windows theory. Zero tolerance, go out there, address the conditions in these communities on this street. If you have a condition where we're getting a high number of assaults, we're going to have patrols there. We're going to address the little quality of life issues.
And I think that it's funny because I think police officers, the system was looking at on one way, and they weren't looking at on behalf of the citizens, where that increased people going to jail, that increased incarceration so much, which heavily affects the family. If the breadwinner,
if the incarceration's no joke.
Yeah, if the breadwinner goes to jail for smoking weed, and now he cannot provide for his family, then the child suffers, the mother, the wife suffers. It's a constant a battle and a cycle. And then I think a child growing up in that environment of zero tolerance and which led to stop and frisk. You have a generation of kids from 15 and up getting arrested and having records before they reach 18, before they're able to apply for a real job. They have records and they have they are put through the system and go into juvenile, and that definitely affected my generation a lot. And looking around and you can't even do anything on your porch. Police officers. I mean, I have an instance when I'm in Southside on 109th. I'm at my best friend's house. And we're on the porch, and paddy wagons used to drive around on Friday nights and do a swoop. And they used to jump out and grab people up, search you, and try to find a reason to throw you in the wagon. And they keep you in the wagon and keep driving around till they get enough people to fill up the wagon, take them to jail. The wagon goes back out, and they go again. And this is something that was justified from the police, but as a person who was a victim of that, that was terrifying, man. At 16, 17, 18 years old dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, basically the police department is disseminated the policies top down from the mayor down.
Mm-hmm.
He chooses his police commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
He sets forth the policy, and that's, I believe, what goes on in all major cities.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a way of looking at it. They wanted to drive down crime. They wanted to make New York, quote unquote, safe again.
And Mayor wanted his numbers to look good.
Yes. And
Cause
nobody wants to be the mayor that has an uptick in crime.
Yeah, because we weren't committing any crime. They weren't different than any 17-year-old, 18-year-old child in America on a Friday night, maybe having a drink or doing what we were doing at our home in front of our stoop. But they're not driving around Long Island, sweeping up kids in their backyard or in the parents' basement or in front of their parents' house, smoking and drinking. You know, and that was the issue that. But my biggest question to you is, and a person that's on the beat in the worst neighborhoods, we have a fear of police. It's like a game of freeze tag, right? Like the fear is not that we're doing a crime that we're gonna go to jail. The fear is that the police will find a way to make it look like you're doing a crime to put you away. You know, and how do you feel about police officers? And what do you suggest to other police officers in terms of how they deal with the community that they weren't raised in, and now they have to go walk the beat, and they have no idea about the community?
Well, it's interesting that we are right now at this point in time, the New York City Police Department, a minority-majority police department. There's been a shift in the dynamic over the last 8 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back from Virginia, I moved right into Queens. I lived in Queens, so I was a city resident. So I took the subway to work, or I took my car when I worked in the evenings, late nights. And I was part of the neighborhood in Queens.
Yeah.
And you see how things change, and it's different. I wouldn't say it's challenging. I would say you have to have maybe had a different environment in your background. Like I said, I worked with Lincoln Phillips for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with players from the West Indies, West Africa. I had African Americans. We had kids from the South. We had kids from New York. We had kids from all over, so we were able to interact.
You had exposure.
Yes. And I also grew up in Brentwood, which is a very diverse community.
Very, very diverse.
Yes. And it's also economically impacted, to be honest with you, because I contribute to the Alumni Association for the soccer team. And Coach sent us a thing one time and said 50.6% of the student body is under the federally mandated poverty line. Yeah. So that caught me by surprise. I was like, listen, if you need anything, I'll give you a check. No problem. Help these kids out.
Yeah.
So I constantly go back. And it's just, I think you have to have exposure to different environments and interactions with people.
Could you, the community has to be somehow intertwined with the police department that's policing their community, you know? Do you believe in that? Or some people say that might be a negative because there's too much interaction? Or
no, listen, there's when I worked in East Harlem, there were a lot of wonderful people there. There are a lot of good people, a lot of hardworking people. Some of the people that we work with in the precinct are civilian employees. They lived in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden, you know, they knew we were out working. They knew who we were. We wouldn't come over and say, "Hey, how you doing?" No, we'd leave them alone because we didn't want to blow them up, you know. And they appreciate us being there. People who are good people, hardworking people, they want to just come home at night, be with their family. They want to be able to go out. They want to be able to enjoy life. And they don't want the problems in their building. They don't want the problems on their block. They would like to be able to have a sense of normalcy.
Yes, and the communication with the police to have a sense
Sure.
of normalcy. You said, guys, sorry to ask so many questions. If
Mookie, just take over.
If you say something, if you see something and say something that goes against the code or goes against one of your fellow officers, do you have a fear of backlash? Well, now as you're a senior, but coming up in the system.
No, there's ways to handle things. Geechee, you handled Zlatan. There's a simple way of doing things. It's like that on multiple levels.
You see how we flipped that?
Yeah. No, but seriously, there are people that I've worked with that are great people. They would open their home to you. They wouldn't let you drive home after you had too many. They'll say, flop on my couch. Listen, you have a problem with your significant other. stay here for the night, cool off. And it's reciprocated. But there are people that you don't get along with, you have class of personalities with, or you don't like how they came in on one of your assignments, they came to back you up with something, and you handle it. You handle it like men, like, you're my man, I'm going to talk to you in the locker room. That's it. And I've told plenty of guys, not in an aggressive manner, but listen, my partner and I, we got this. We're going to handle this. Have a good day. No need, we got it. And it's like, yeah, all right, no problem, the heck with you too. So kind of there's that internal policing, but because the generations have changed and you're dealing with a lot of younger people who grew up maybe in a play date generation.
Sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's different. I saw it as a supervisor. Once I became a supervisor, watching who can take critique, who can't take critique, who knows how to handle themselves. So you have to kind of walk the fine line. And as a supervisor, I can basically turn around and say, listen, my man, come over here, let me talk to you. I'm going to tell you how it's going. If you ever call me to one of your assignments again, because you don't know what you're doing, the moment I show up, it goes the way of the book, the patrol guide. And you're not going to like me, and I don't care.
I have a quick question, and,
sure.
it might be off of everything, off topic a little bit from this specific one, but I think you'd be a really good person to get your perspective of it. So everybody's heard in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, whatever, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, hashtag Black Lives. And then I guess in response to that, there was the All Lives Matter. In response to that, there was the Blue Lives Matter, right? I would love to, hear your perspective, one, because you're white, two, because you're obviously a cop, in regards to why do you feel, not you personally, but like, why do people feel that the movement of Black Lives Matter is in direct conflict with everything else?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer, but I think every life is important.
Yeah.
We all, in a Judeo-Christian sense, have been taught that the sanctity of human life, everybody's important, everybody matters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with anybody. You want to just don't push your views on me that I'm bad for not agreeing with you. I kind of am more of a libertarian. Like, do your thing. Don't include. If they don't want to include me, I got it. Listen, I'm good. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to go through life.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's people that get very passionate about it because we do, when the shots are fired, we're running towards the sound of the shooting and other people are running away from it. Doesn't make me a hero. I go out there, I do my job to the best of my ability. So do millions of other people. A lot of the guys and gals I work with, they do that. So I really can't answer that, but I don't see any problems with if you have your point of view and you share it with people. If you want to get out there, you want to do it. Just don't attack me in the meantime,
right?
Because I'm not into it, or I don't.
I was just like,
really going on.
For me, obviously being a black male, and I just never. Obviously, all lives matter. Nobody wants a life to be damaged or taken away. But I just didn't understand, like, not all, but there were always these negative responses. And for me, I was like, how does highlighting one issue to some people automatically disparage another, right? When it has nothing to do with it.
And that's why that issue is addressed because they feel that way, right, Gooch? Like, and that's the problem, right? I think that's the problem, is that it's not saying all lives don't matter. We're saying that, listen, there has to be some type of urgency of that Black Lives Matter. This is the problem.
It's like, why can't people be secure enough to know that one issue doesn't have to do with another, and you're not taken away from it, right? But you're allowed to highlight something and not say, okay, we don't give a damn about this. Of course we do, right? What I mean?
It's just, I guess, in the optics of it or how it's perceived. Like I said, Mookie said, there's a lot of people are very sensitive.
Right.
Some people take things the wrong way. They take maybe as an affront, or why are you attacking me by saying this in this tone or this manner or in this direction?
I love to discuss a little bit about the protests and what's going on between the police and the protesters. Obviously, you could speak specifically about New York City. What would you say to a person who wants to go out there and protest but is scared to get hit or beaten by a police officer or get arrested?
generally, when you go out there to protest, as long as you're peaceful and we're there to protect your right to exercise your First Amendment right, to peaceably assemble, to protest, and to speak, whatever your opinion is, if you think, hey, listen, all cops are dirty, nasty people and I hate you, I'm not going to turn around and give you the finger and say, hey, you're this and that. I'm just going to stand on the other side of the barricade or where I'm supposed to be standing, and I'm going to absorb it and be like, okay, no problem, next. I wouldn't be actively engaged in picking up things and throwing them.
Obviously,
you kind of got to have a sense of, listen, this is starting to get a little overwhelming for me. Maybe it's getting a little too densely crowded in terms of my personal space. Maybe there's somebody who's very boisterous that's near you, that's advocating for maybe some violence. Maybe you could turn and go in a different direction and keep yourself secure. That's the only thing I could suggest. I don't think we're going to knowingly go out there just to tackle people. But
I often see times where, yes, somebody might initiate, but a lot of times police officers initiate as well, right? There's a tactic where I say the police officers, they hold a stance. They all lined up together. People are protesting. They're standing in front of them. They don't do anything. And it seems to me like somebody says, okay, we got the timing, or it doesn't seem like something specific happens and then they react. It seems like there's like, okay, now we ready. And then police officers go. And when they go and they try to push the protesters back. So the protesters are peaceful. They're chanting, singing, whatever they're doing in front of the officers. The officers are sitting there. They have their stance. They're watching them. And then there's an aggression of the police officers that goes towards them. And I guess it's for the listeners who are just part of that peaceful protest. And then when they get ransacked and get pushed, as a person, as a man, if somebody pushes you, police officer, doctor, lawyer, your first reaction is always going to be push back, or what are you doing? Especially it's from a person
from New York.
Yeah.
You know how these guys in New York, you can't touch people in New York.
I think that's any human being. I think the person, a white gentleman from Mississippi, if I push him as a man, he's going to what? Push me back. So I ask you, because there's a lot of women and friends of mine who are out there protesting, and they become victims. And these are educated people. They're not throwing stuff. They're not looting, but they get caught up in the web of when the cops are ready to make that push, right? And go ahead, sir.
To be honest with you, I'm not physically there, and sometimes the words come from a different location in terms of rank and file.
Yeah,
you're standing there, next thing you know, okay, we want to clear the block. That means you got to start moving people. We got to move them along, and we don't make those decisions independently as white shield police officers. That comes from
up top. But yes. Don't you think, like, the intelligence, right? If you have a crowd of people who's been there for a certain amount of time, and then you go say, okay, now we're going to push you out the way, you're going to have a confrontation. It's going to get ugly. Sometimes it seems to me, and other people feel the same way. Sometimes it feels like this is what the cops want. They want to kind of antagonize, and because they're human beings, right? You're getting screamed at. They don't want to be there. Half the cops don't want to be there. They're getting paid overtime, but they don't want to be out there. They don't want to be dealing with this shit.
They would rather be in other places.
And you can see that, right? You can see the way how they react and how they act. They don't give a damn if you're a woman. They don't give a damn if you're a mother. They don't give a damn if you're a daughter. They don't give a damn if you're a son. And that's the disrespect that, as we're learning, and as we probably mostly know, it comes from the top. But that's the confrontation that we have a problem with, that we have to solve. Is the procedures, right? And I say that to go into New York City. I know you have to take you have to have 60 credits to be a police officer.
Yeah, when you take the civil service exam for police officer, by the time you get hired and sworn in, you're supposed to have 60 credits.
Yeah.
But
that's not nationwide, right? In terms of
that's just something they started about just before I came on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big problem, Gooch, is that, as a whole, and not to be disrespectful, a high school diploma or somebody who can just have a high school diploma, put them in critical decisions to make proper decisions. I mean, it's a bad ratio, right? That you're going to get a good result.
I think in a lot, there's like, I go back to the whole standard of like the universal standard of the cop. So it's like the stigma, I guess, is, you know, cops don't get paid well. It's not a prestigious position. And so as a result, you kind of get,
in New York City, they get paid well. I just want to let you know.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying in general, it attracts maybe not the most qualified individuals some of the times, right? And I think there needs to be a higher standard and maybe a shift in regards to the prestigiousness of being a cop, because
yes,
being a cop is a prestigious role. Like you're there to protect the community. You said it before. You're like, I'm not a hero. I'm like, yeah, you are. You're meant to be, right? That's what you are. There's nothing more prestigious than that, right? And until like there's a certain shift in terms of the mental outlook in terms of that, and then the people that they allow into that circle, because I'm not saying all cops are bad, by no means, obviously, like, but it's just like a small group can really plague the image of the larger focus, right? And that's what you need to do in order to kind of eliminate that smaller group from being associated, is have stricter guidelines, have stricter testing or whatever it may be to be able to get into the police force, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you take a civil service test, you go through an extensive background check, you have your own personal background investigator. It's a centralized location now. And you also go through a battery of psychological tests you take, and you also go through some physical aptitude tests. So that kind of washes people out. And during your 6 months in the academy, you're put under certain stressors. You're put under academic stress. You're put under physical stress in the physical tactics section, what we call the gym block. And you're learning how to drive a police. All of these stressors mounted up in a rigid environment, you have a washout rate of about, I think, my class, it was about 10 to 12%. You know, people that can't make a 1.5 mile run. There's people that can't do a certain amount of pull, so can't come over a wall. They can't do the drag the dummy, the 175-pound dummy. There's different things people fail out academically in terms of with taking law, you're taking behavioral science, and you're also taking police procedures. And then you're also learning other things. You're learning how to use a firearm. You're learning how to, in the physical tactics section, use an expandable baton, this is how old I am. We did boxing. Now they're doing grappling. They're doing mixed martial arts because they have to stay involved in terms of the curve, in terms of how to protect.
Definitely. And
how to move on, you know? So, and then there's also people that once they get out on the street and they are in a daily grind of it, say, "Ooh, wait a second, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back and do an office job or something." And there are people that move to smaller departments. There are people that just leave the job. So that is, you know, the funny thing is the day I was sworn, they're like, take a look at all these people next to you. By the time you retire, the only next time you might see them is when you all retire, because you're all going to go different ways of the wind. Some of you are going to leave this job. Some of you not find it's not for you. And some of you are just going to go to different jobs. So that's pretty true.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched. I mean, it's kind of going into what you guys are talking about, or what we're talking about right now, and you touched on it a little bit. You said, you know, there's going to be you think after this, all this is going on now, there's going to be somewhat of a change with, you know, I don't know, you didn't really go into. I don't know. It's how you guys are, the policies you guys have, or with. How you handle different situations. What kind of change is going to be, you think, that's going to change right now just because of
I mean, since I came on, there has been, I would say, the last couple of years of Bloomberg's administration, and from the moment de Blasio came in, there was a heavy emphasis on training in terms of use of force training, community policing training, and they're all good training. Our in-service training in the New York City Police Department, I would compare that to anything that Fortune 500 companies get in terms of human resources, human growth, personal wellness. They're really pushing that. But community interaction, that was one of his big pushing points. And we were going to academy for in-service training for 3 days at a time, sometimes like 1 to 3 days in a row, doing what's called new modern policing, 20K. And we had outside speakers would come in, and we're doing in-service training through distance learning, where you're watching videos, you're reading procedures, and you have to take a quiz. And if you don't pass that quiz, then they give you another chance and you don't pass that one, then it's, hey, let's get going here. Come on in. We're going to teach you. Maybe you need to learn hands-on. Mm-hmm. There's also the use of force and how we are procedurally guided in terms of what the New York State penal law says, in terms of what the city wants. And, you know, it's I personally like the way we're getting trained because it's you're thinking differently, and you're looking at a different perspective. You know, it's like, hey, everything out there is a nail. Now go out and figure the problem. Here's a hammer. No, you don't hammer everything.
Right.
Maybe you wiggle something. Maybe you can interact differently. Maybe you can speak to people, learn how to do things. Yeah. So that's a different type of learning, different type of teaching, and you have to look at things in a different light. From what I'm gathering is basic messages I'm getting, like, oh, hey, maybe I could interact this way, or maybe interact that way.
Yeah. One of my last questions to you, and there's been a lot of controversy about this in the last few days in regards to the riots. One is that everyone's like, oh, the protesters are rioting. I'm like, no, the protesters are protesting, the rioters and the looters are looting, right? It's a
correct
division. There's been, I wouldn't say conspiracy theories, but theories that there has been, whether it's law enforcement or government officials that have been sent to kind of instigate things, like leaving. I've heard people
put
bricks in the middle of the place.
Yeah, I've always wondered how there's no construction going on, and all of a sudden there's a truckload of bricks that wind up somewhere.
Right. And just like you've seen videos of like a random person with a mask just nonchalantly breaking glasses and walking off, right? Not even taking part in the overall protest. Do you think that's a conspiracy theory? Some people are just looking for reasons, or do you think that there's some truth behind all that?
I think there is, from what we're gathering, just with theorizing at work, we're like, look at all of these guys. They're all wearing masks. And we've dealt with like Antifa type people with Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
And interactions with them. So you kind of get a physical look at who they are and what they're like. And you're like, oh, that guy looks kind of like somebody we deal with at Occupy Wall Street. Or looks like an Antifa guy. Mm-hmm. They try to mix themselves in. They'll come in, and then all of a sudden they'll instigate, and they'll start to maybe egg people on, or maybe start a violent act like breaking windows, or start kicking on a car, or yelling profanities to the police and start trying to egg people on, try to get a group mentality where all of a sudden it's Lord of the Flies.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw one video online, and this guy, a white gentleman, he's in the mix, and he's telling, yo, guys, there's a picnic bench. Let's go grab the picnic bench.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then unfortunately, the weak and maybe they're not intelligent, right? Will who get riled up, and then they go race. The one guy was on the bike, Beasley, about to take off to go, and the guy goes, no, the picnic bench over here. And the guy goes, oh, ready? Okay, let's go, guys. And he jumps and goes, and then the white gentleman just calmly walks behind them. You could see he's just leading the blind.
He's an agitator.
He's an agitator, yeah.
Yeah, there's always been agitators. We get told that for the last several years. Hey, listen, be careful. There's agitators in the crowd. They'll start to incite other people. They'll start to try to get at you. You have to maintain some discipline.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Coach, I have a last question. I don't want to keep you too long, right?
No, listen, I'm enjoying this. This is great to interact. I mean, I'm hoping I can give you some clarity on some things.
Of course.
100%.
In New York City, you can't do a crime and get away with it, right? There's so many cameras. Ever since 9/11, there's a camera on every street.
Oh, that's where you live in Lower Manhattan.
Hey, you blowing me up, man. You blowing me up. From Queens, baby. I'm from Queens.
He's a city boy now.
Listen, Gotham is great.
But anywhere in New York City, there is a bunch of cameras everywhere. Do you think it's harder now with the mask in general, not just the protests, in general, to police by use? Because a lot of times people get caught because it's caught on camera, right? And you can identify the face and you watch what car drove off 5 blocks later. Do you think it's harder now with the mask? And do you think that these looters, that New York City Police Department are still able to find the people who are doing crimes?
You are correct. There are a lot of cameras downtown, and it's worked its way past Midtown until
Brooklyn
now
to
uptown.
Every store has a camera.
Listen to the sensitive New Yorker over here.
Yes,
man.
yes.
Let the man talk.
I'm not gentrification.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, as neighborhoods change and there's more concern about security for personal security and for property, like certain buildings, they'll have doorman buildings, yes, but they also have multiple cameras. There's also what we call Argus cameras. New York City's police department has street cameras that are on and located all over the 5 boroughs. And they're good. They're a resource. They're minimally invasive. It's not like they're zooming in on your face. Yeah, okay. It's just watching Queens Boulevard by the Queens Center Mall.
Yeah.
Then you also have our best resource is the cameras that are in buildings. Several years ago, when I was still working in the detective bureau, somebody had thrown a pipe bomb at the British embassy, British consulate, and took off on a bike. They were able to, back at that time, when talking about 2004, they were able to follow that individual on video through all the buildings. He made a turn on this street. Okay, we got him here. Now check all the buildings. How many cameras you got? How many are store-facing cameras? How many are street-facing cameras? How many are building, corner of the building? So yeah, you're going to get found out because you might wear a mask when you commit something at 13th and University.
Yeah.
But by the time you get all the way to 14th and Union Square and you pull the mask off, you're still wearing the same stuff, you're going to get got. There will be ways to find you.
Yeah.
And there's, in the subways, there's lots of cameras. And it's becoming a very digital society. And also people have their own cameras. They'll turn around and be like, oh, I got you.
Yeah,
that.
Yep. Well, Coach, man, again, I want to say thank you for taking.
Wait, I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
No. I mean, listen, you've been quiet all the time. I'm waiting for the PSV man here to
go. my question, and this is more of, and I don't even know if you can answer it, but I definitely want to, hear your opinion. And if you can't answer it, that'd be great. But and this is about about George Floyd. Obviously, the guy that the cop that put his knee on George Floyd's neck and killed him, got arrested. But the other cops, that's accessory to murder, is it not? Why is it? I mean, because for me, and this is what, a lot of, it's just, me, I'm just a, normal guy, but I hear, we take care of our own, cops, they take care of their own and they keep it in family and this and that. So for me, is this kind of what is going on with the other 3 cops that just stood and did nothing? Why are they not being held accountable just as much as, the guy that actually, stood on his knee on his neck? Why are they, how is that not accessory to murder?
All right, as best I can explain this, okay, like I said, New York State penal law is different than the state of Minnesota's penal law, as is different in Virginia. And like when you were at ODU and I was at VCU, it's not the penal, it's the Code of Virginia. They have different statutes than we do here. So each state has its own set of guidelines and statutes in terms of what constitutes certain crime. The investigation into those 3 guys is still ongoing. That is probably being handled by Minneapolis Police Department, probably the district attorney of Minneapolis. But the thing that the president did right away is he said to the Justice Department, get over there. I want to know what's going on. Start your investigation. And the FBI Civil Rights Division was sent in. And when they come in, it's a wrap, my man. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, Abner Louima, those guys, they'll tell you it's done because the feds have infinite resources. They have nothing but time. They will wait you out, and it might take a little bit, but they will get you, and they're going to get got. It's just a matter of time. We say it at work like, these guys get grabbed yet? No, not yet. Well, when's it coming? It's coming. So there will be something there.
Yeah.
They've already, under the advice of their counsel, not answering any questions.
Mm.
So that's, like I said, everything is different in terms of each state, each location.
Each state, right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was very disturbing to watch, to see this happen to another human being, especially the guys that I work with, we're in this profession. like what's going on? Why did this? How did they even think this? What was this guy thinking? It's disturbing, and it has to be addressed. And they lost their jobs. Fine, that's minimal. One guy's getting locked up. He's going to do a serious bit of time, probably 25 to life.
But history has shown, Coach, that usually they don't get convicted, unfortunately.
Well, there's video on this. Okay, there is public outcry. You just got to hope that there's going to maybe have to be, his lawyer could say right now, change of venue. It's not going to be in Minneapolis. It'll be somewhere in Minnesota. They're going to argue for that. That's what his lawyers are going to do. And it all depends what the judge says. Yeah. But once the feds get involved, listen,
it's a wrap.
The Rodney King incident back in the 90s, they got off, right?
Yep.
Guess who came in? The feds came in, civil rights violations, they all went. Okay, that's what the catch-all is. That's why when you have the Justice Department walks in, especially with their Human Rights Division, and you have the FBI goes in with their civil rights violation units, and they had the AUSA, the U.S. Attorney for that region, like New York City has a Southern District and the Eastern District. Once they get involved, it's a roller. It's over. You might as well figure out a plea deal. So it's going to come. It just has to go through a process. In terms of what they have, in terms of video evidence, what people statements. That's all it's going to come down to on that. You just have to be patient, and we're just as wondering as everybody else.
Definitely. Well, Coach, man, thank you so much again for being honest with us.
Yeah, listen, not a problem.
And getting on and sharing with us. And again, great conversation, but also it's a needed conversation, And I hope next time we talk, we could talk about something that refers more into football.
Well, we can talk about my boys Hamburg getting back into the Bundesliga.
Hey.
They're killing me. They're killing me. They're going to wind up in a relegation game and have to play somebody, and I got to go to a home and home.
Hey, man, Bayern Munich wins it every year anyway, so you might as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a duopoly, monopoly over there.
Yeah.
Well, but they always steal the best players from the opponents anyway.
He's talking like a true New Yorker right now.
Listen, I follow teams because I have certain attractions to them. I mean, Real Madrid, because back when I was younger, they had all the German guys went there, Paul Brighton, they're going to Netzer, and then Inter Milan because they had Rummenigge, and then they had, the trio Bremer and Klinsmann and Lothar Matthäus, and then in terms of England, Ballack wound up going to Chelsea, and I happen to like Mourinho, so I'm a Chelsea fan in that regard. So... But I'll let you know, Marcus, I don't like Ajax. I like PSB.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. My boy Jeffrey Brumer plays there,
Yeah,
he did. Now he's back at Wolfsburg. I wish he wouldn't be injured as much. He's good. Yo, did you get that picture I sent you?
Oh, of course. We're gonna show it to the audience, man, in the post.
Yeah, but, it's a funny little story. There's a picture of myself with Nathan Ake. I'm in uniform. As New York is, it's crazy. You meet crazy people. You see all sorts of people. I'm working the Puerto Rican Day Parade. I'm in front of the Plaza Hotel. I'm interacting with the cops, making sure that they're doing what they're doing. And I see this young man and a couple of his friends, and I look, and I said, oh, wait a second. And I point at him. I wave. He looks at me, and I kind of motion him over, like, come over here, please. He walks over to me, and he gives me a sheepish look, and I reach out my hand. I said, you're Nathan Ake, right? He goes, and he smiles. He goes, yes, I am. I said, I was so disappointed that Chelsea let you go to Bournemouth. I said, I liked you playing on the left back. I thought you got up and down box to box well. I thought you did some good things in the center back role. I said, you could even play the holding role. I said, you're on the under 23 national team. And we talked for like 15 minutes. And he was like, listen, I want to play for my national team. I need games. I go, listen, I hear you. I just hope they exercise the buyback clause and bring them back.
Well, so listen, they're gonna bring Arsenal about to buy him, so don't worry about that, Coach.
Oh, man, no, I can't like him. Because I hit him up on Twitter. I sent him a picture. I'm like, listen, thanks. It was a good time, good talking to you and all of that. I wish him the best. So if he goes to Arsenal, me a little disappointed there.
I hear you, man. Coach, thank you again, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, listen, be well. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And nice meeting you guys. All right?
All right, bro. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Yes, sir. Hello? I think Bees got out of there.
Yeah, Bees got out, but
Yeah, I bring Bees back in. But yeah, brother, very, very what'd you think about Coach and what he had to say and his point of view? And
I mean, he's an educated man, right? He's not oblivious to what's going on. And I almost feel bad for him because it's like his subgroup is getting a bad image, and it's not all the bad people. It's not all the bad apples. But as a response to all this, they all get thrown into that group, right? But it was very informative. He gave us some insight, some answers I didn't even know about in regards to things. So I'm glad that he was able to come on. He seems like a cool cat.
Yeah,
even though he's from New York.
Yeah, he's the truth, man. He's the truth, man. But again, I'm glad you guys got a chance to have a little discussion, and I think there's something that has to be continued. And we need a part 2 that goes into some other things that are very serious that has to deal with what's going on right now. But to the listeners out there, I hope you realize and know that we have to be united, right? And you realize that you're not alone. I want to encourage people to talk to people if you're feeling down, if you're feeling frustrated, emotional. Just know that that is normal, but you have to communicate. You have to reach out. And Gooch, you can always find Gooch on DM, and he'll eventually give you your phone number, and you can call him and talk to him. If you're going through any issues, Bees, I was telling him that thank you for him. I didn't mean for you to get off as well.
Oh yeah, my bad. I was like, all right, then, please.
Typical left winger, man. I just want to recap, and obviously close out the show. I know we all have things we have to do for this morning, but it was good to get a chance to have a conversation. Again, I told you how emotional I was this morning. But Bees, what do you think about the conversation and Coach Stuck?
Yeah, I mean that's I think it was informative. It was an interesting conversation, to hear from his point of view on different topics. Obviously with the situation that happened with George Floyd, obviously things that happened in New York, things that he was supervised, that things that he had supervised. He wasn't there, but he was, he heard the talk, throughout his precinct. And obviously the riots that's going on now. So I think it was great, to hear his perspective on things and obviously talk a little bit about football. But for me, it was more so just getting a sense of what they actually, go through, talk about, and how they think about different things in different circumstances.
Yeah. Gooch, close us out. And with a thought, and maybe I think the key for me is we all want solutions, right? We have a conversation. I think one solution that we spoke about with Coach was needs to be a community relationship with the police, and I think they have some of those in certain cities, but not all. But I think the community has to have a board that polices the police.
I mean, there has to be some standard, right? And like he said, he feels like it's going to go towards that direction right now. I mean, I'm to close it out. We started this whole thing, the conversation, talking about this is nothing new to us three, right? This is nothing that we just started experiencing or witnessing or taking notice to. This is something that I've known and I've seen all 38 years of my life, right? And I think that a lot of people choose to be oblivious to it. If you really want to think about it in terms of a timeline, segregation ended in 1954, right? 66 years ago. That's well within lifetime of people that we're still in association with, right?
10 years before Bees was born.
Exactly. Right before Bees' birth. There was, Jim Crow, segregation, black, white schools. So that stigma it doesn't disappear just because you make a law. Yep. It doesn't disappear just because Barack was president. It doesn't disappear because Oprah Winfrey's rich. It doesn't disappear because Black athletes are wealthy. You know, that doesn't disappear. And I think for me, and this is my personal opinion, is I don't believe this racism is so deeply threaded and embedded in the society that we were built. This country was built off of suppression of an oppressed minority. It was built off of racist thoughts, acts. I mean, just like I said, only 66 years ago, me and my girl couldn't even attend the same school, right? So I don't think it's about changing what was old, because change is truly difficult. It's about creating a new America. Like, we have to just reform it. It has to be created. Like, it's hard to go back and change multiple centuries of thought, action, and habit. But it's not that difficult to pivot and be like, okay, I'm not going to go this way. I'm going to turn this way and continue down this road. And I think we're at a real crucial moment in our history, in our lifetimes. And this is an opportunity for humanity, for society, for everybody, because it's not just happening in America. The riots and the protests are going on in Europe. They're going on everywhere else, you know? And I think as a global community, this is a great opportunity to pivot and say, okay, you know, I agree. I was ignoring this. I saw it. I was ignoring. I wasn't standing up. That's not going to happen anymore. This won't continue. I won't stand for it. And that's where I feel like that's the opportunity for our global society to actually make a difference.
Definitely. Well, fellas, I want to wish you guys a better day, a positive day. Be strong. Talk to fellow friends and reach out. And, good show. And I love you guys. I ever told you that?
Nah, you ain't never tell me that.
Love you too, man. Love you too, man.
All right, boys. Love y'all, boys.
All right, peace out.
All right, man. Be safe. Peace.